Here's the paradox of 1971. The moment R&B stopped asking permission, it started telling the truth.
I know you broke their hearts one after another, now bit by bit.
Marvin Gaye held Motown hostage with politics. A 12-year-old sang like a broken man.
Through the years, I tell you like it is, honey, do you love me?
A baker from Mississippi taught the industry what respect sounds like. What happens when artists stop performing and start confessing.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Want it?
When a man whispers because shouting is a lie. When a song's mistake becomes its soul.
Let you go, come on, I can sing.
This is R&B Legacy FM. We're diving into the year honesty became strategy. When one song at a time, artists dismantled the old rules and built something that still won't shut up.
Bit by bit, you made them cry. Any poor girls?
Marvin Gaye released What's Going On in 1971, forcing Motown to accept his political voice.
What's going on?
Detroit that January felt like a pressure cooker. Berry Gordy had called the song the worst thing he'd ever heard. Too political, too risky. But Gaye had leverage and conviction. He walked into the studio with his brother Frankie, a Vietnam vet carrying nightmares home. The party noise opening. Real voices. Detroit Lions players Lem Barney and Mel Farr laughing in the background while a nation burned. Gaye went on strike. No release meant no more music, and Gordy's empire needed product. The material was undeniable. A man refusing to sing happy when the world demanded honesty. The battle between art and commerce had never been so loud or so quiet at once. Next, a 12-year-old boy would sing about something no child should understand. The Jackson 5 delivered Never Can Say Goodbye in March 1971 from a Los Angeles studio where innocence collided with adult pain.
Never gonna say goodbye.
Michael Jackson was 12 years old, singing about toxic cycles and the inability to escape. That was the resistance. Berry Gordy heard it immediately. A child's voice carrying world-weary surrender shouldn't work. It should feel wrong, but Michael's vocal delivery had no sugar in it. The tone was flat, accepting, exhausted in a way that made the heartbreak heavier because it came from someone who hadn't lived long enough to deserve that weight.
Never can say goodbye.
Gordy realized the contradiction made the song stronger, not weaker. The material evidence was in the performance itself. A kid becoming an instrument of adult truth. Motown was shifting. Bubblegum pop was dead. What remained was serious soul, delivered by voices that had no choice but to grow up faster. James Brown would reject the very structure of song itself. James Brown recorded Make It Funky in 1971 at the Apollo Theater, refusing to build verses and choruses like a normal human being. The resistance was pure. Song structure versus the groove. Brown had decided that traditional songwriting was the enemy of truth. What mattered was the rehearsal, the process, the moment when the band locked in. The material evidence lived on the record itself. Spoken directions captured mid-session. Boosie, what you gonna play? Brown's voice interrupting the music, breaking the fourth wall, refusing to hide the machinery. The definitive action was treating the tape as a document, not a product. Every mistake, every call out, every moment of decision making stayed in. This was funk without apology, raw and unfiltered. The environmental shift was seismic. Funk was rising and it didn't need permission from the old rules. Next, a man would choose whispers over shouts and change R&B legacy FM forever. Al Green arrived in Memphis in 1971 carrying a macho image that producer Willie Mitchell dismantled with a single instruction: whisper instead of shout.
Help me, girl, soon as you can.
The resistance was visceral. Green wanted to belt to assert dominance, to prove his manhood through volume.
You see, baby, I've been thinking about it, yeah.
Mitchell wanted intimacy, the dry, close mic sound that put a man's voice directly into a listener's ear. Tired of being alone demanded vulnerability masquerading as strength. The material evidence was in the recording technique itself.
I've been getting next to you, baby. You see, sometimes
Green's voice so close to the microphone that every breath, every hesitation became audible.
yeah. I've been getting next to you, baby.
There was nowhere to hide. Male R&B had been built on projection and power.
You like it is, honey, love me if you will.
Green's submission to the soft style cracked that open. Sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was exposure.
It's a natural fact that I wanna come back.
A singer choosing to be heard rather than to dominate changed what masculinity could sound like. Meanwhile, a baker from Mississippi was about to teach the industry a lesson. Gene Knight released Mr. Big Stuff in 1971 from Mississippi, a song that major labels had rejected for being too sassy, too demanding, too female.
Who do you think you are? I think I'll tell you.
The resistance was industry sexism, plain and practical. Jean Knight was a working class woman, a baker in real life, singing real frustration.
Of a mind now, yo, chop and show game. It's the best stuff. Tell
The material evidence was her job itself. Flour on her hands, bills to pay, no time for men who brought nothing but ego.
it's the best stuff. You're never gonna get my love.
Stax Records only released it because they had a gap in their schedule, a slot to fill.
Try to keep you satisfied. It's the best stuff. Tell me, who do?
No faith, no strategy, just an opening. The definitive action was simple. A woman with nothing to lose saying what needed saying. Women's liberation wasn't a slogan on a poster. It was a voice refusing to perform gratitude for basic respect.
You're never gonna break my heart. It's the best stuff.
The song became inevitable exactly because the industry had tried to bury it. Now a fantasy would mask a breaking point. Eddie Kendricks of The Temptations recorded Just My Imagination in Detroit in January 1971 while internally dismantling the group he'd helped build.
Running away with me.
The resistance was the collision between fantasy and reality. The song itself was lush orchestral strings, a dream sequence of orchestration.
It's truly a dream come true.
Kendrick sang about imagining a love that couldn't exist while knowing he was leaving.
Running away with me.
The material evidence was the contradiction embedded in the production, those sweeping strings masking internal fracture.
Tender rhapsody, but in reality,
Kendricks recorded his vocals separately and left immediately after. The tape became a document of a man singing goodbye disguised as romance.
to have a girl like her is truly a
This marked the end of the Classic Five era. Groups that had seemed permanent were fragmenting.
I hear a tender rhapsody.
The environmental shift was towards solo careers and reinvention, away from the collective safety of the ensemble. Next, a queen would claim someone else's song. Aretha Franklin covered Spanish Harlem in 1971 at Atlantic Studios, a risky move because Ben E. King had already claimed that song. The Resistance was the original hit itself. How do you reinterpret something already definitive? The material evidence was in the arrangement. Dr. John on keyboards mixing New Orleans Swamp with Aretha's gospel piano. Pop strings were replaced with something darker, earthier, more rooted. The definitive action was the texture change itself. Aretha wasn't competing with King. She was claiming the song as an interpreter of truth. Her version made the original sound like a sketch. She established herself as the ultimate translator of emotion, the woman who could walk into any song and make it confess something new. The environmental shift was toward established artists reclaiming material, proving mastery through reinterpretation. A newspaper ad would become a manifesto. Honeycomb pushed Edna Wright to sound desperate on Want ads in 1971 at Hot Wax Records, using a newspaper concept as the material evidence, seeking love like a job posting. The resistance was studio intensity. Producers demanded Wright dig into her own hunger, her own exhaustion. The definitive action was opening with an aggressive vocal hook before the beat dropped, a woman's voice cutting through silence. The song treated love transactionally, exactly as independent women were beginning to speak about relationships, as negotiable, not inevitable. The environmental lever was women treating emotional labor as labor, not destiny. Want ads became an anthem for a generation refusing to wait. A placeholder mistake would become art. Bill Withers recorded Ain't No Sunshine in Los Angeles in 1971 with no third verse lyrics, leaving a loop of I know repeated 26 times, a placeholder that should have been fixed. The resistance was songwriting rules. Professional songs had structure, completion, polish. Booker T. Jones heard the demo and told Withers to leave the mistake alone because it was honest. The material evidence was the repetition itself, the exhaustion embedded in those 26 loops. A man running out of things to say, running out of hope, running out of words. The definitive action was preserving imperfection. Singer-songwriter authenticity was rising over production polish. The environmental shift valued the human moment over the crafted moment. A monologue would name something taboo. The Persuaders opened Thin Line Between Love and Hate in 1971 at Atlantic Records with a spoken monologue confession about being cut, hospitalized, damaged by a woman.
You keep her, she keep me quiet. She might be.
The resistance was the taboo of male victimhood. Soul music had permitted women to sing vulnerability. Men admitting domestic violence from women broke a different code.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't give it a second thought.
The material evidence was graphic: blood, ambulances, the specifics of injury, all kept in the lyrics.
I wanna tell her, pass your hand.
The definitive action was refusing to soften the narrative. Cinematic soul was emerging, the kind that showed the ugly side of love without flinching.
You keep her, she keep me quiet. She might be.
The environmental shift was toward honesty about damage, regardless of gender or expectation. Funk would refuse to play nice. The Beginning of the End fought tourist cliches on Funky Nassau in 1971 from the Bahamas, rejecting calypso expectation for something raw and street level.
Yeah, but we've gone funky, and we got.
The resistance was the expectation that Caribbean music should be resort music, gentle, designed for vacation.
Listen to the bass, man. Go get that same groove.
The material evidence was the Junkanoo rhythm injected into the bass line, a rhythm from the streets, from working class celebration, not tourist boards. The definitive action was refusing to play nice, choosing street funk over commercial safety.
Get that same
The environmental lever was funk becoming a global language, a code that didn't require translation or assimilation. Funk didn't negotiate with tourism. A group would prove survival. The Impressions recorded Love Me in Chicago in 1971 without Curtis Mayfield, proving they weren't backup singers waiting for his return. The resistance was survival without their leader. Leroy Hudson's voice carried the Chicago cool, the definitive evidence of independence.
You may not think it right, but at first
The definitive action was staying on Curtis's label to prove they could exist in his shadow and still matter.
who's the man, child? I just got to let you know.
The material evidence was their decision itself, loyalty and autonomy coexisting. The environmental shift was the fragmentation of 1960s groups into solo careers and new configurations. Groups that had seemed permanent were dissolving into histories. Isaac Hayes rapped Theme from Shaft in Memphis in 1971, refusing MGM's demand for a black sound that didn't threaten Hollywood racism.
Right on. You see this catch?
The resistance was cinematic. Studio executives who didn't want their villain's theme to sound too authentically black. The material evidence was Charles Pitt's wah-wah guitar pedal, a sound that had no precedent in film scoring.
When there's things you're all about. Right on.
Hayes rapped instead of sang, claiming a narrative voice that Hollywood hadn't authorized. The definitive action was taking blaxploitation cinema by force and defining black masculinity on his own terms.
Risk his neck for his brother, man. Can you dig it?
The environmental shift was seismic. Black artists were no longer decorating white spaces. They were building their own worlds, claiming control of image and sound.